Shabbat Shalom. One of the drawbacks of our triennial system of reading the Torah is that publicly, at least, we don't get to read all of the text, especially when we have a double portion like today. That's right, we only read 1/3 of what we could have read, so there are always things to be grateful of. So I can bring you one of the highlights from the later section, which of course has the famous phrase, "And you will love your neighbor as yourself." As a matter of fact, this is not the only time that God commands us to love. We are commanded to love our neighbors. We are commanded to love God, famously in the Ve'ahavta, and we are commanded multiple times to love the stranger. Love is a very powerful part of God's message that is found throughout the entire Torah, as well as the rest of the Tanakh. Unfortunately, it seems to be one of the more difficult things for people to grasp. Pretty straightforward, what we're supposed to do for Shabbat, not so complicated, how we keep kosher, being honest and fair in our business, the minimums there are not exactly onerous. But love, what do we mean by love? Well, I'd like to offer an example, something that you can learn from that is outside the pages of the Torah. Your dogs. You have dogs. Some of you, I'm sure, many of you may have grown up with a dog, even if you don't have one now. That was my situation. Dogs know how to love unconditionally. Dogs know how to show affection and loyalty in a way that makes us simply glow with joy. When that dog comes running up to you and tries to lick your face, disgusting though it may seem, secretly, aren't we all thrilled? Even if you know you were late with dinner for the dog, even if you know that you've been busy and haven't taken the dog for enough walks lately, even if you know that, sometimes you're not exactly the best owner or companion to that dog, the dog's still there. Still curls up on the bed with you at night, still licks your face when you come home, still is willing to put up with all of your idiosyncrasies and inadequacies, and loves you for it. Loves you unconditionally. The dog isn't sitting back and saying, "Earn my love." The dog comes pre-packaged as a bundle of love from the moment it is a puppy. And yes, if you mess it up, then unfortunately dogs can learn to be more skittish, but hopefully even with just a modicum of reasonable care for that animal, you will find a loving partner that asks nothing in return. It is a beautiful, beautiful gift. It is one of the things that God gave us, the companionship between humans and dogs, that is there to teach us alongside the words of Torah. Because all of us want to be loved unconditionally. All of us need to feel that there is some creature that loves us no matter what, that loves us purely and wholly. And we can mess up and we know they will still love us in that same whole, passionate way. And dogs are that example. But the dogs are also our accuser. Because the dog will be there loving you unconditionally, and you will feel amazing for that. And you will realize what it means to have this in your life. And yet when it comes time for your turn to love another unconditionally, whoa. I'm not going to act like a dog. Right? The dog loves me unconditionally, and I need this. I bask in its adulation, but I'm not going to be the dog for someone else. I'm not going to be someone else's doormat. There are always going to be conditions on my affection. I'm not going to just roll over for anything that some other person does. The dog loves unconditionally, and for that I am fulfilled, but I will not be that fulfillment for someone else. The dog accuses us. The dog is more vulnerable than any of us. The dog can't feed itself under most circumstances, especially if it is just a pet rather than a wild dog. And yet, the dog loves us unconditionally. The dog is more vulnerable. It can't provide shelter for itself. It can't provide cooling and heating. Many times it can't even safely procure its own water. And yet the dog loves us unconditionally. It doesn't worry about the bargain in the relationship. It doesn't worry about being beholden to someone else. It doesn't worry about being submissive and being taken advantage of. The dog gives that love freely. And in the right kind of relationship, it pays off for that animal. And dogs can have a beautiful and good life. Now, half of you are looking at me right now saying, yes, dogs are great. But you're still missing out the point of what I'm asking you to do. The other half have gotten that point, and you're just smiling and nodding along, hoping the rabbi will wrap this up soon. Because is the rabbi really telling us that we should live like dogs? Is the rabbi really telling me that I should make myself that vulnerable, that open, of loving others in my life that unconditionally? Well, yeah, the rabbi is. Let me give you an example from the dog, and you tell me whether, as a human, you would behave as well. So imagine the owner loses their job, and they're no longer providing the best kibble, no longer providing the nicest food, no longer able to afford the air conditioning that makes Florida summers bearable, the dog days of summer, if you will. Is the dog going to leave you? Is the dog out that door? No. Would some humans? Would you? Remember what I just said about thinking slowly? Quickness runs in the family, I know. Sometimes a little too quick. Imagine you fall ill. You're now no longer the fun, playful companion that dog has loved all of these years. You're no longer out there throwing the tennis ball. You're no longer running in the park. You're no longer taking them for that daily jog as well as their constitutional. But now you're gone for hours at a time, chemo or dialysis. Your life is hanging by a thread. And the dog's life is now greatly diminished from the joy that it had only a little while ago. Is the dog going to leave you? No. Do some people leave each other under those circumstances? Far too common. I can't handle the stress. I can't handle the problem. I'm not able to get my needs met while taking care of their health. A dog understands what we're supposed to do in that circumstance. How come humans don't? How come we feel that we're able to walk away and still look ourselves in the mirror? And yet a dog could teach us that if you walk away when someone needs you, you never truly loved them in the first place. You enjoyed their companionship. You enjoyed their affection. You enjoyed the love they gave you, and you gave them back just enough to maintain the relationship, just enough to keep them from walking out the door the way you're thinking that you might do if the things got tough. But that's not love. That's not the love that God is telling us to have for each other, for our neighbor, for our stranger. We all want that unreserved love. We all want love that is unconditional, but each of us is often afraid to give that in return. But the truth of the matter is that you cannot receive anything if you don't open up your own hand. How can you take hold of someone else's love if you're not willing to open yours, be vulnerable, and give unreservedly to them at the same time? Love is not something to be bargained with. It is not something to be haggled over. It is not something that we keep score on. There is no tit for tat in a loving relationship. Yes, things can go wrong in a relationship, and for that, there is conversation, there is counseling, and sometimes there can be irreconcilable differences, and people do need to split and go their own way. This is all true. But while in that relationship, do not be counting the moments of giving versus the moments of taking. Do not be asking whether you get more than you give. In that moment of relationship, be completely unconditional. In that moment, be completely vulnerable. Open yourself entirely to the other person. They may or may not deserve it, just as many of us don't deserve our dog's love. And if you learn that they don't deserve it, then there are exits. There are ways to leave. But while you are there, be present with the fullness of yourself. And you will find, most of the time, the same way that we respond so generously to the love of an animal, we will respond even more powerfully to the love of another person. Because as much as I loved my dogs when I grew up, they pale in comparison to the love of another person. We count on the dog's love, and that makes us sometimes a little jaded for the love that another person can give and that we can give. But you have to allow yourself to open those hands, to open your heart, to give all the love that you have. In all times, in all places, beginning with those closest to you, and eventually growing through practice to recognizing that love can be given to all. The commandments say it quite clearly. Love your neighbor. Love the stranger. From where I'm standing, that covers everyone. But start with at least one person. Allow yourself to love unconditionally. Shabbat Shalom.